Hi, everyone. It's meteorologist Joe Chaffee on this Sunday as we go into daylight saving time. And we have the overnight model runs, and they are all pretty much now coming together on a major winter storm that's going to be moving up from the Carolinas up into southern New England and beyond. And what I'm showing you right here is the European surface for Tuesday evening, where it has a 982 low sitting basically south-southeast of Montauk, or south-southwest of Nantucket, or southwest of Nantucket, and it tracks the low from right there. You can see it here on the map. I'm gonna just draw it out this way. So there's your low track, basically, according to the European, which takes you right through what we would call, when we went to school, we used to call this the box. And the box was roughly this area in here, that if storms tracked inside that box area was where areas in and around New York City would normally see snowfalls of 6 inches or more. And so you would look for tracks somewhere in there, and this goes right to it. There's often reference to the benchmark, which is at 40 north, 70 west. That's on the eastern edge of the box, but this one comes well inside of that, so that's not an issue. I also think that if there are mixing issues that occur over parts of the central and North Jersey coast, and for the eastern part of Long Island, it will not make any difference in terms of the total snowfall. I think everybody's going to wind up with a foot plus out of this before this is all said and done. So let me just take you through. I'm going to use the Canadian model tonight because the Canadian and the European are pretty close in a lot of ways. So we're going to go to that first, and let me just pop it up there, and we'll put the precip on it. So, it's a shame that we don't have that available publicly, but the European, being a privately owned company that produces that model, you have to pay for all that stuff, and they get touchy if you show it on the air if you do pay for it. But anyway, here's the Canadian model. It's a little faster than the European in bringing snow up into New York City, but it has it snowing heavily in the Philadelphia area by 2 a.m. And then you can see it just really goes crazy in terms of the heavy snow throughout southeastern Pennsylvania, back through much of Maryland and northeastern Virginia, central and northern New Jersey, New York City, Long Island, into southern New England, snowing in Boston by 8 a.m. on Tuesday. And then the low really gets wrapped up as it goes up east of New Jersey, south of Long Island. It's maybe a little bit faster than the European is. The European position is a little further southwest on this. It's right there. Sorry, I'm still back in the box position, so let me just get to. We'll get to this here. Let me clean that up. Okay, so the European's track is roughly from here to here. So there's your European model track. The Canadian's track, and we'll do that in red. The Canadian's track is probably a little bit to the left of that, but not by very much. It's pretty much around the same place in terms of where that model has it. And the GFS, which we'll look at in just a second, takes a track maybe a little bit further to the east on this run. It also has a few other differences that, I think that's probably not a good color to use. So we'll go with, let's try the dark blue. How's that? Well, there's your GFS model. Okay. So, they're all pretty close. And if you want to make, if we want to also maybe add the NAM to this, let's try, we'll do that brown. The NAM still is probably a little bit further to the left, but the NAM has come also to the right. And by the way, there are variations of the NAM model that are already further to the right. So we'll show you that, and then I'll go to the GFS after that. So we'll go to the NAM. This is the standard 12-kilometer NAM, which is what everybody kind of looks at first. and you can see the low, while it still wants to take it for whatever reason over Chesapeake Bay, then it just kind of starts to slide it out to the east-northeast. It's a little further east than its prior run. And when we look at the 3-kilometer NAM, which is coming up right now, you can see the 3-kilometer NAM. Now, we don't go far enough. It only goes out to Tuesday morning, but the 3-kilometer NAM actually has a surface low pretty far to the east. You can see it there. You know, it takes kind of a center jump east of Chesapeake Bay. That actually, for some reason, it's got the L printed here, but there's actually a closed low center right there off the Delaware coast. You can see all the heavy snow that it has for the northern half of New Jersey and Long Island and into southern New England. I really do believe that mixing issues here are not going to be, you know, even in those areas that wind up with mixing, I don't think this is going to be a big problem in terms of trying to skew out accumulation amounts because of those differences. I think at the end of the day, everybody's going to wind up. There's going to be a certain degree of minimal uniformity, and then there'll be variations from there. So let's show you the snowfall maps. I'll come back to the GFS, I promise. But this is now on the NAM, on the 3-kilometer NAM. This is only through 8 a.m. Tuesday. So we've got already 6+ inches and 1 foot plus snow is already showing up in parts of southwest New Jersey from this. Okay, that's on the 3-kilometer NAM. If we go to the 4, and you can see the 4, again, this is by 8 a.m. already put down 6 to 10 inches across much of the area. We go to the 12-kilometer NAM for the same time frame, and 6+ from New York City west and south. But the thing is, that NAM model does have it changing over to, you know, does change it over across central and eastern Long Island, and looks like in New Jersey south of Route 195. I'm thinking that that's just not going to happen. I think that is just too far west still on that particular model. So I really feel pretty good about that. So let's look at the GFS now. And the GFS has, well, the GFS actually puts a gap in the snow amounts right around New York City for some reason. It's got, well, I know why it does it, but it's got, you know, 1 foot plus snows to the south and west, and then it's got another area of 1 foot plus snows to the north and east, and it kind of has a little hole in the middle. And I think the reason for that is because of the track that it takes to surface low, which it also is a little bit further to the east than its prior run. So you can see it here just east of Delmarva, and then it runs, you know, it's a little further. It's a bit more southeast than the European and the Canadian, but we're talking a handful of miles here. It is fairly close. The other models were probably, you know, 60 or so miles further north, or roughly. And I think, you know, that's going to make a difference for somebody. I don't know if the GFS has a true depiction of how this is all going to play. So here's the bottom line. We're going to have snow developing here. You're going to be having snow developing in the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area by late Tuesday afternoon, Tuesday evening, and into Philadelphia later in the evening, into New York City during the early morning hours, snowing heavily at daybreak from Washington to Baltimore to New York City to Long Island and into southern Connecticut. Snow developing in Boston on Tuesday morning before daybreak, and then snowing heavily there during Tuesday afternoon into Tuesday evening. Still snowing hard back to about New York City and coastal New Jersey Tuesday afternoon, even into western parts of New Jersey. It'll still be snowing at a pretty good clip. And then the snow will taper off in these areas as we go through the late afternoon and evening. That's always kind of tough to figure with these really intense storms. So sometimes the snow winds up backfilling on the backside, and you think it's going to end, and it doesn't. And that's especially true for areas from New York City on eastward. So that's something we're going to want to pay attention to. Why don't we look at the upper features here, because this has really been part of the whole equation that we've had the toughest time figuring out, because it's been really a matter of phasing or not phasing in terms of what the models have been showing. And here's our upper air. Okay, so here we have the GFS, and you have this closed, really large, excuse me, this trough, and there you can see the distinct short waves that are involved here. You've got this shortwave trough here. I think we're going to go back to the freehand and back to red because that stands out nicely. But you've got, here's that southern stream shortwave that is responsible for the low center that lifts up, and the main trough is still out to the west. So it was a question of whether these things were going to phase too quickly, and then that upper low really drops down southeastward. The GFS actually has, and the European was showing this. I didn't look far enough today into the European yet, but the European was showing this the last few days for Wednesday, that there might be some backside snows here with the upper low. So that's something we're going to have to watch with the upper low tracking to the south. It could mean for an additional couple of inches for somebody. But you can see it here how, this is pretty much how we get big snowstorms here. It's variations of this upper trough that comes down into the Great Lakes and dives southeastward, and as energy rides up the coast. That's pretty much how it happens. Here's the Europeans' view. And this is here's Monday night, and you can see that short wave. This is Tuesday night now. Here's that southern stream arm just has completely come around, and here's the upper low that's diving southward. And it was important that these systems stay unfazed for as long as possible, because otherwise, if it had phased too far to the west, then you would have wound up with a storm that would have gone well to our west. And it would have been mostly rain for coastal areas, and maybe even for a good portion of the inland areas. The NAM's idea was to at least try to do that phase a little sooner, and that's why it probably, still has some semblance of the low closer to the coast. And actually, that is the case to some degree, but I'm noticing that at least on this run, that there's a little more spacing between the troughs, that there's a little bit less phasing on this run, and this could be the reason why the model has now shifted a little bit to the right. So we're gonna. I'm kind of gonna, from a meteorological perspective, I'm kind of excited about seeing how this all plays out. Every one of these is always a learning experience, and I get, I try to take everybody through this process, this sort of forecasting process that goes on. It's not a simple matter of just, anybody can learn to look at a model and say, well, this model does this and that model does that, and that's not forecasting. That's model reading. Forecasting is taking the information and then trying to make some logic out of it, trying to understand, coming to an understanding of what actually is happening in the upper layers and the lower layers of the atmosphere, and putting it together in something that makes sense. And you know what? Every snow forecast that you ever make as a meteorologist, if you're a young meteorologist watching this, every one that you ever make is going to bust for somebody someplace. You're never going to get it absolutely perfect for whatever area you're forecasting for. You're going to either be too high on, in one area and too low on another. And that's just the reality of it. So you just do the best you can. Get a flavor for what's going on. Because when you understand what's actually going on in the upper atmosphere and in the lower atmosphere, you can start to find these things, you can start to see the seeds of these things days before, and you don't often need models to tell you that. You can just sort of look at the flavor of the upper air and get a sense that something is going to happen. Just real quick, so we can show you some of the weather around the other parts of the country. Again, whenever you have dominating features like this, other areas of the country wind up calming down, and it does make forecasting a little simpler in that you don't see these wild model swings where storms are there 1 minute and gone the next. By the way, one of the outcomes through all of this, and I mentioned this the other day, is cold air that's going to be moving all the way down the eastern seaboard into Florida. Why don't we look at the 2-meter temperatures, because they were really crazy low the other day. So let's look at, this is Wednesday morning, where we've got lows in the 30s in North Florida, still a little bit on the warm side in South Florida, but temperatures during the day not really getting very warm. And this is for Thursday morning, where we've got lows down in the mid 30s, almost all the way down south of Orlando. Uh, Amazing that it'll be this cold. And there probably might be some frosts and even in freezes in North Florida, 20s into Georgia, teens all the way into northern Georgia. This is very, very cold air that's going to be left behind in the wake of this big storm. And it's going to take a few days for things to warm up down there in Florida. It looks like the cold weather will last into Friday and then maybe back into the 70s by the time we get into the next weekend. Yeah, looks like it. Maybe by next weekend it starts to get back to some semblance of normalcy as the weather relaxes across the Northeast. Okay, so we'll get ready for the big snow, folks. Blizzard watches are up, just to review on that standpoint. And we've got blizzard watches up for New York City, Long Island, the coastal counties of Connecticut, Rhode Island, and southeastern Massachusetts. Winter storm watches up for northeastern Virginia, Maryland, including Washington and Baltimore, on up toward Philadelphia, all of the eastern 2/3 of Pennsylvania, New Jersey. We've got winter storm on these winter storm watches up for much of all of New York State and virtually all of New England. So this is going to be a widespread snowstorm. At least we have no worries about any problems for the rest of Sunday, although it's going to be another bitter cold day with many areas not getting out of the 20s, and then sunshine and arriving clouds on Monday with snow developing by Monday evening, by late Monday afternoon in Washington, D.C., Baltimore area, later in the evening in Philadelphia, and probably a little after midnight in and around New York City. Okay, posts on the website, meteorologistjoechaffee.com, weatherlongisland.com. Angry Ben has been doing a fantastic job on nycweathernow.com. If you haven't gone to that website yet, please do. That's his doing. He produces all the original content for that, and he's a very good forecaster in my view. That's nycweathernow.com. And of course, you can get my local forecast for New York City, Long Island, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and the Hudson Valley, and Connecticut on my weather app. There are specific forecasts for each zone, and that's just 99 cents a month, and the app is free, and the links are all going to come up at the top of the video. And of course, if you'd like to buy me a cigar and a beer on my website, you can always hit my PayPal button. Anything you throw in there is greatly appreciated, and don't feel obligated to throw in anything at all. I just put it out there. If the folks want to put in something, it's a big thank you from me to you. Actually helps me keep everything free, which is really good. So everybody have a great rest of your Sunday. Be safe and stay warm, and we will update you later today as we get closer to what could be a very important weather event that'll be affecting the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast.